Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by J Sporting Goods, the Yider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polarcraft Boats, the Forward Corporation, Primal Tree Stands, Security Credit Union, Garber Chevrolet, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Well, thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to another edition of the Outdoor Magazine radio show here on the Outdoor Magazine Radio Network. So glad to have you along with us as we continue our weekly 3-hour adventure into the history and tradition of this wonderful outdoor lifestyle here in the great state of Michigan and occasionally beyond. We talk about hunting, fishing, shooting, trapping, wildlife issues, conservation issues, even some wild game cooking, and I'm glad to have you along with us. If this is your first time, I really appreciate it. If you are a long-time listener, I thank you for that as well. Welcome to the month of February. Phil, did Phil see his shadow, Pat?
Yes.
He did. Okay. Yes. Okay.
More winter.
Which is just what we need, right? More winter. Although it depends on your perspective. I get that. And the weather, as we are sitting here in the studio right now, the weather is a big topic because we record the show midweek. This is not a surprise. And the reason we record midweek is so we have time to get the show out to the distribution sources, so we can get it up on the satellite, we can get it on the FTP site, so our affiliate stations can download it and air it for the weekend. When I was on a previous network years and years ago, we did do the show live on Saturday mornings, and then it was the network repeated it Sunday mornings, which was nice for making the topic more timely. And it was actually easier to do it that way because you did it once and walked away from it. However, it really put a crimp on my weekend activities, and it really got in the way of summertime fishing. So I'm glad that we do it the way that we do. So as we are recording midweek, as I look out the window, yeah, it's snowing a little bit here in my part of the world, but the forecast calls for a lot of snow. Now, did we get it or not? You will be able to tell me by the time you hear the show, right? And I feel like the more hype that a storm gets, the less snow we're going to get. Oh, you could get anywhere from 6 to 18 inches, and maybe it'll blow, and maybe it won't, and maybe it'll last 2 days, and maybe it'll last 2 hours. No offense to my meteorological friends, my meteorologist friends, but it's all just a guess, right? A scientific guess, but a guess. I go back to the days when my grandpa would walk out on the front porch of the house. And he would smell the air. He would feel the wind. He would feel the direction of the wind, the temperature, the ache in his bones. And he would base his weather forecast that he was creating for himself on Mother Nature. Or the Farmer's Almanac. These days, I want to know what the weather conditions are or what the forecast is. I grab my phone and pull it up. We, as a society, maybe me as an individual, have just gotten so far away from being in touch with the real world, with the natural world, with the critters and with Mother Nature. And every generation that I've observed in my life has moved steadily away. Again, I go back to my granddad. I mean, he was in tune. He was a farmer, he was a hunter, he was a fisherman, and he was out there every day in Mother Nature. And he knew so much about it. He knew so much about hunting and fishing and trapping and shooting and the weather. And he passed that down to my dad. And I bet my dad would, well, in fact, I think my dad did tell me when he was still around that he didn't know as much as his dad did. And my dad passed things down to me, and I'll guarantee you I am not as in tune or as knowledgeable about such things as my dad was. I know more about technology than he did, but really, what good does that do me, right? I think we need to strive to stay in touch with what really matters. And, that's going to vary from person to person, family to family. What is important in your family culture? Faith, family, hunting and fishing, the outdoors, the real world, the natural world. And that's why I stress getting out there in the natural world. Get outdoors. Feel the wind in your face. Feel the snow coming down. Get cold. Get uncomfortable. Put yourself in a situation that you don't have control of. In today's world, we are so used to immediate gratification, and things happen according to what we as humans want. And use your phone as an example. Pick up your phone. When you look at it and press a button, it responds. And it does what you want it to do. And it gives you the information you want. And we get this false sense of how we are important because we can control the devices in front of us. Get away from that. Get outside. Get on the water. Get on the ice. Get in the woods. And pick up an activity that you don't have control of. Mother Nature doesn't care about you. She doesn't care. She's going to do what she wants. The deer, the walleye, the turkeys, the bear, the panfish, they don't care about you. They're going to do things the way they need to do things, and if they let you enjoy that experience and let you into their world for a few hours, then it's just a blessing. But I believe we as a society, we as families, we as individuals need this contact with the natural world more than ever to reset our frame of reference, to remind ourselves that we are not the most important thing in the world. That's why I love the outdoors. That's why I love this outdoor lifestyle. And I would encourage you to get out there as much as you can as well. And I say that knowing full well I'm being a little bit of a hypocrite because this time of year, I don't spend that much time in the woods or on the water or on the ice. I don't. I save that all up for spring and summer and fall. Oh, ice conditions are pretty good across most of the state, though, right? I mean, we're having a good ice fishing year. Did you get your application in for your springtime turkey hunt? And listen, before you say, Avery, why? Let me just follow up on this. Let me explain what I'm talking about. Yes, it's true that with the advent of Hunt 234 and ZZ, which really don't sell out, and some of the other areas don't sell out, it's not as critical. It used to be in Michigan, if you wanted to hunt turkeys in the springtime, you had better apply for those limited quota hunts or you weren't going to get a bird. You weren't going to get a chance to hunt a bird. Not so much anymore. But I always put the reminder out that if you want to hunt in one of the limited quota, limited seasons, that it's not a bad idea to spend the $5 and make sure you can lock it in. Yes, if there are leftover tags, you can buy one. But I love turkey hunting so much, I'm just not going to take the chance. It would absolutely break my heart if for some reason ZZ sold out because a bunch of people were turkey hunting this year and I wasn't because I was too cheap to spend the $5. I value turkey hunting too much to risk it on $5. And when I put out a reminder, hey, don't forget, if you want, apply. This is your deadline. Oh, I'm not going to give the DNR that. It's amazing to me how a significant percentage of hunters and anglers in this state absolutely hate the DNR. Hate the DNR. And I get it. The DNR is a big government bureaucracy. I don't like government bureaucracies. But I don't hate the DNR. I don't like everything they do. I don't like the way they are managed sometimes. I don't like their lack of will sometimes. For example, a wolf hunt. You know, and I'm not talking about the biologists. I'm talking about the powers that be. You know, I mean, get the fortitude to fight for things. Don't worry about, how are the anti-hunters going to perceive this? Well, just do it. A sandhill crane hunt. Oh, the antis are going to fight it. Who cares? So I'm not a fanboy of the DNR. I don't dislike them. I think overall they do a great job, and I think the field people, for the most part, do a wonderful job. How did I get down that rabbit hole? Coming up on this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show after the break, Bob Hines of Central Coast Angling. He is still out there on open water up in the Traverse City area. Then Tom Campbell of Woods-n-Waternews. In hour number 2, we are talking wolf hunting with Darrell Garden, a friend of mine from White River, Ontario. They hunt wolves up there. Let's talk about what a wolf hunt could look like. Then Sergeant Richard Cardenas of the DNR. This week's Ask Avery segment talks about smoking fish and wild game. So I bring in my friend Nick Grillo of Michigan Brand Meats. He knows that inside and out. And then hour number 3, we're talking ice fishing with Jake Romanak of Fishing 411. And we'll wrap it all up with wild game chef extraordinaire Dave Miner. That's coming up this week right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Manistee on WTIQ, AM and FM, 1490 AM, 95.3 FM. You can hear us in Alpena on WZTK 105.7 FM. And you can hear us in Lansing on WILS 1320 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by the Linwood Beach Marina and Campground. Linwood Beach can be your year-round Saginaw Bay fishing destination and your Mid-Michigan Tracker and Angler Quest headquarters. You know I love that. For more info, check them out online at linwoodbeachmarina.com. That's linwoodbeachmarina.com. They're ice fishing right now on Saginaw Bay off Linwood Beach Marina. And the ice conditions, as I was saying earlier, across much of the state are pretty darn good this year, even extending down into the southern part of the state. So when I put the show together this week, I thought, I want to find somebody who's fishing open water, expecting that I would find them down in the southern part of the state. And then I remembered Bob Hines of Central Coast Angling and his pictures he's been posting of some beautiful perch catches, open water fishing. And I thought, Bob's my guy, and he graciously agreed to join us. Bob, welcome back to the show. How are you?
Pretty good. How you doing, Mike?
Hey, I'm doing real good. So tell me a little bit about your operation. You're based out of what, Traverse City?
Yeah, I am up here in Traverse City. I like to roam around the state, but I'm definitely residing in Traverse City at the moment.
Well, where are you roaming now? Where are you fishing now, Bob?
Grand Traverse Bay, Torch Lake. Both spots.
I live downstate. I'm south of you, and I guess I would have thought that, boy, Torch would be frozen, and I thought there'd be some ice on Traverse Bay too. No.
No, both are open. I did get a phone call last week, and I saved somebody's trip up north. He asked me how much ice was on Grand Traverse Bay because he was headed up for the weekend to ice fish for lake trout. And I laughed. I said, you better stay down south, or you better come up to an inland lake because no ice on Grand Traverse Bay. It did skim over just slightly, about a half mile offshore, but one good wind and it was gone.
Well, again, forgive my ignorance, but does that bay ever freeze?
It does. It actually was frozen in 2018 and 2019, I believe. And 2019 was the last time I ice fished it. The last time it froze over, and before that, gosh. I mean, it once every 10 years, sometimes back-to-back if you have the right weather conditions. Basically what we need for Grand Traverse Bay to freeze over is dead calm night, single digit. But dead calm night for obviously 2 to 3 nights in a row because you have to you have to be able to make that ice. So it doesn't happen often, especially once we get the old north wind, because as anybody that's ever looked at Grand Traverse Bay, we run north and south. So you get north wind, it's gone.
But you're okay with open water this time of year, aren't you?
Yeah, I am an open water bum. I was just actually on the river fishing with Bob Ison like 2 weeks ago, and the day before that, I was actually in my boat perch fishing. And as I'm sitting there river fishing with Bob, I said to myself, I should have been perch fishing today. So, yeah, I do like the open water. I do like to be in my boat, and there's nothing wrong with ice fishing. I definitely go ice fishing from time to time, but because I work 9 months a year on open water, ice fishing is a break for me, and I like to be in my boat.
Well, and I know our mutual friends, the Grillos of Michigan Brand Meat. That's how I first found out about you. They rave about you, Bob. They come up with you and they catch beautiful catches of jumbo perch. Is that what you're targeting most right now?
Yeah, we are. I was just out. Right now the way I'm fishing, if it's not over 30 degrees, I don't really like to go. I don't have a bimini on my boat or any way of getting out of the weather, so. Yeah, I'll go perch fishing absolutely with a quickness. And that perch fishery is so good, strong, that I can basically go out there and, we were going to go yesterday. Yesterday was a beautiful day. We had 47 up here in Traverse City, and we were going to go perch fishing. Unfortunately, it blew, 25 mile an hour out of the southwest, and so that's just not ideal to go out there and bounce in the waves. If it would have been blowing 15 mile an hour, I would have absolutely been out there yesterday and Monday. The tricky part right now is going to your launches and make sure they're open. So yeah, perch fishing definitely. There are other options. I really like to fish for panfish. I'm fascinated by the perch fishery here in Lake Michigan. So there are other things I'll go do. Like I will absolutely skip over the Torch Lake. We were out there not long ago, and we were trolling up browns and Atlantic. So that is definitely an option. If it's calm enough, you can vertical jig for the burbot on Torch Lake, and that burbot, you hear them eel pow. Lawyer is a word that people use to call them, or they have so many different names. I just call them burbot. Everybody pretty much is fascinated with burbot, and Torch Lake is a really good consistent fishery for that is open. Now if it freezes up, everybody can get out and get after the burbot on Torch Lake.
Wow. And I do want to talk about that. I find that very interesting, but I want to go back to perch, because perch are a fish that everybody in our state loves. People will stop. Yeah. They'll stop trolling for salmon. They'll stop trolling for walleye if they hear the perch bite is on. What is it about perch that people just love, Bob?
Oh gosh, to me it's like eating shrimp. It's eating. I'm a seafood fanatic, so they're just tasty. It's like eating smelt. If you get on a good smelt bite on the ice, people just love them. They're very flaky. They're very tender. It's like candy. And me personally, when I cook my perch, I have a recipe that I love to eat. And it's not. I've eaten enough deep fried perch in my lifetime to satisfy a lot of people. But I like to cook my perch on the grill. I'm always discovering new ways to cook my perch. Recently, another thing I've done is chowder, making a perch chowder. Oh. So I think that the fact that they just taste so good, they're not a hard fish to catch. They're plentiful in a lot of lakes here in Michigan. Everybody is fascinated by jumbo perch. I know the Grillo certainly are. We had a day there, I think, just before Christmas. I think that they had 89 fish, and I don't think there was but a few that were under 11 inches that day.
Wow.
So I know they went home with one heck of a taxidermy bill. But yeah, the perch, people just love them. I mean, and they're kind of rare to get. Like my idea, if I'm going to the Upper Peninsula, I'm stopping at a restaurant and getting a perch fry. I mean, I'll eat perch in a restaurant still. I'm that guy. So yeah, I mean, perch they're just delicious. And then they're a lot of fun to catch when the bite is good.
Now, you mentioned jumbo. That's a subjective term, but in your mind, as a guy who's seen a bunch of legitimate jumbo perch, how big does a fish have to be a jumbo in your eye?
For me, it's 12 inches. That's my number. A lot of people. So I always, if you ever come on a charter with me, I will sit there and you'll hear me say, that's the right one. That's the right fish. My right fish is 8 to 11 inches. And when I say that's the right one, it's because of tenderness, pin bones, Obviously you'll have pin bones when you eat a perch fillet. A lot of people can cut them out. But when I say that's the right size fish, I'll say, well, it's 8 to 11 inches, because anything bigger than 11 inches, I'm cutting the pin bones out, so it's completely boneless. So I'll sit there, oh, yep, that's the right one. Throw it in the live well.
Yeah.
But, yeah, for me, my number is 12 inches. And then, something that we haven't done at Central Coast, we've caught thousands and thousands and thousands of perch now on our charters, and I cannot get the 16-inch perch in my boat. It just hasn't happened. It's going to happen. I don't know when. We've had some 15 and 5/8, 15 and 3/4. We're very close. But for me right now, 12 to 15s are common.
12 to 15 are common. See, that's crazy. That's crazy to get fish that size. What's the secret to that, Bob? I'm not asking for your honey hole, but how do you target or find these jumbos consistently like you do?
Deep water. I find my biggest perch come out of 65 feet or deeper here on Grand Traverse Bay. And Grand Traverse Bay is very deep, just like Lake Michigan. But once you get to 90 feet, there's a lot of flats out there. And anybody that has really, really studied and broken down perch fishing has looked at deep water flats. So, 90 feet, especially in the springtime, don't be afraid to look out to 110 feet. I've absolutely caught perch. The deepest I've ever caught perch is like 116 feet.
Wow.
So don't be afraid to look in deep, deep water if you really want to truly catch a big, big perch.
Are you jigging that deep water or using something closer to a traditional perch rig?
I use perch rigs every day of the week. You look at every rig rod in my boat right now, it is rigged up with an 1.5 ounce pencil sinker and just a standard perch rig. A lot of people, the White River, the perch pounders, that is a very popular one you can buy, and those work just fine for jumbo perch. You just put it, 1.5 ounce sinker on there and send it to bottom. Tip it with your favorite bait, minnows, minnow heads, wigglers. Some people use wax worms. I got a couple buddies I network with, and I talk down fishing Muskegon, Grand Haven, and we talk about different baits and different riggings and stuff. And I know it works for me, and I know it works for those guys. And wigglers can be tough to get in the spring when the rivers come up and kind of blow out the wiggler beds. So a lot of guys have to switch to minnows, including myself. I might have some wigglers preserved and for special days, but definitely wigglers and minnows are my go-to, especially on big perch.
So drop it to the bottom, leave a little tension on it so you can feel a tap, tap, tap?
Absolutely. I just barely pick that rod up very, very calmly, and especially in the wintertime, they get lethargic. Their metabolism slows down, so that bite, especially on a big perch, there's times that a big true jumbo perch, and I'm talking 14, 15-inch perch, will pick that bait up. You never know that it's in its mouth. And you pick up that rod tip, and you've got weight. And then you just, you set the hook and you reel it up. Now, a good technique is to slowly jig it up and down and wait for your rod tip to stay down, because that's the weight of the fish. And then you just, drive that hook home. But for the most part, day in, day out, for up here, our fish are pretty aggressive. You'll get a few fish that you don't feel bite, but most, it's the ice fishing bite. You just watch your rod tip, and when it bounces, you just let them have it.
What a treat to lift a rod and have two jumbos, two 12-inch or bigger perch on the line. That would be fun. Bob, hang tight. We've got to take a break. We're talking with Bob Hines of Central Coast Angling. You can learn more about his charter company, his guiding business, at his website, centralcoastangling.com. That's centralcoastangling.com. Bob is still out there on open water. We've talked about perch fishing, which, of course, gets everybody's attention, but I got to follow up now after the break about trolling for browns, Atlantics, this time of year in the North Country, and burbot. Burbot's an interesting fish. I don't know. I've never targeted them. I don't know if I've ever even caught one, but I know a lot of people love them, and Bob has lots of experience with that. Bob Hines of Central Coast Angling, centralcoastangling.com. More after the break right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Battle Creek on WBCK 95.3 FM. You can hear us in Flint on Sports Extra 1330 WTRX. And you can hear us in St. Joe on WSJM 94.9 FM. The segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Rapid River Knives. I've got a Rapid River knife in my pocket right now. You know I love these things. Handmade by craftsmen in Michigan's Upper Peninsula. You're going to use a knife all the time, right? You carry it with you all the time. Why not have it be a handmade knife by craftsmen in Michigan's Upper Peninsula? The website, rapidriverknifeworks.com, rapidriverknifeworks.com, or stop by the showroom there in Rapid River and see what it is that I'm talking about. I gotta sharpen my Rapid River knife. And here's the deal. These things are guaranteed for life. I can put an edge on it myself, which I will, but I won't do as good a job as if I would take it up to the factory and they will put a new edge on for me. In fact, next time I'm up that direction, I will do that. RapidRiverKnifeWorks.com. Also, while you're online, check out CentralCoastAngling.com. CentralCoastAngling.com, the website of Bob Hines and Central Coast Angling. We've been talking about targeting open water, jumbo perch, on Traverse Bay this time of year. But now, Bob, let's turn our attention to something else. You said you can troll for browns and Atlantics over on Torch. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, that's a neat fishery that's been around for a few years. My biggest brown to date came off Torch Lake, and I picked that up about 2 to 3, I think it was 3 winters ago. I picked that fish up out of Torch Lake, and it was right there in the 13-pound range. Nice big brown. Obviously, fish like that, they go back. They're special. Torch Lake actually has Atlantic salmon in it. It's a stocking program that's been going on for many years, obviously by the Michigan DNR there. It suffered for a lot of years. We had a lot of small Atlantics going in. I think kind of what happened was it was becoming forage for the browns and obviously the other species in Torch Lake.
Yeah.
Torch Lake is just a vast, really neat fishery. It's very similar to Lake Michigan or Lake Huron, any of the Great Lakes, but it's extremely deep, extremely clear and clean, and it hosts just a vast amount of different species of fish. And we've seen muskie in there. There's bass, smallmouth bass in there, perch, excellent whitefish fishery, and then you got your stock brown trout. You've got your Atlantics in there. You've got excuse me. Oh, what else have we pulled out of there? Browns. Lake trout's got native lake trout in there. So it's just a really neat fishery, and it doesn't freeze too often. Excuse me. It's a neat fishery. It doesn't freeze often. You can fish it in January as long as the accesses are open. So, just like any access you want to use your boat, you got to make sure that you can actually not deal with shelf ice.
The average person, can they tell the difference between a brown and an Atlantic? I mean, they look very similar, right?
Yes, it confuses a lot of people. For the most part, if you know what you're looking at, if not, there's always the handy digest, but it's not hard to tell. I mean, for me personally, that comes with experience.
Oh, sure.
If you're in question, nothing, we live in an age where data's at our fingertips, so we can always, take a picture and reference it and send it to a friend quickly. So if you're in question, heck, send it to me. I don't care.
I've heard those Atlantics, though, are great, hard-fighting fish. I mean, a lot of people are real excited and have high hopes for Atlantics in some parts of the state.
They are an excellent fish. We just got a great stocking of Atlantics in Torch Lake about 2 years ago, and they're not hard to catch. Anybody, if you have a 14-footer, you can go out there. You don't need any special tackle. Before I had all my special tackle, and everything, and I was set up to be a charter, I would go out there when I was a river fisherman in my jet, and I would pull, spinning rods with F11 original floating repellent things. I mean, you don't need a lot.
Yeah.
Now, if you go out there and you have lead core and you have downriggers and gypsies and everything, obviously you're going to really cover the water column. But for right now in the wintertime, you can get out there and you can target, 40 to 80 feet of water right along those breaks and pull cranks, pull spoons, and you can flatline and catch these fish. you can run a 2-color and catch these fish. So it's something to do in the wintertime, if you're not a diehard ice fisherman, or you get a warm day and you feel like getting the boat out. It's something to do.
And real quick before I have to let you go, burbot, are you jigging those off the bottom?
Absolutely. Burbot are awesome. You can, they will eat just about anything. Swedish pimple works great. Trout and pout is that's a favorite one of mine. A guy up here, Larry Jennings, obviously, I think a lot of people know Jonah jigs Larry Jennings.
Yeah, we've had him on the show before.
Yeah, he makes a nice little jig for burbot, too. Actually, I've been using his lately. So, yeah, it's pretty easy. 65 foot, right in low light conditions, usually can get it done. And they taste great. I mean, poor man's lobster.
Bob, it's always a pleasure. Our paths have not crossed in person yet. I'm sure they will, but I always enjoy your time here on the show and appreciate your time.
Well, get up here. My boat's always welcome to you, so get up here and, come catch some jumbo perch or something.
I would look forward to that. Bob Hines of Central Coast Angling, his website, centralcoastangling.com, centralcoastangling.com. Yeah, I see the pictures that my friends, the Grillos, get when they're perch fishing with Bob, and it's jumbo after jumbo after jumbo. And it does make me want to head up there. CentralCoastAngling.com is the website, CentralCoastAngling.com. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine Show. When we come back, we'll wrap up this first hour with Tom Campbell of Woods-n-Waternews. Then in hour number 2, we're heading north to White River, Ontario, Canada, to talk with a wolf hunting guide. We bring that up because maybe sometime we'll be hunting wolves here in Michigan. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine Show in Iron Mountain on WMIQ. That's 1450 AM. You can hear us in Ludington on News 97, 98, 98.7 WLDN. And you can hear us in Sheboygan on Big Country Gold, WCBY, 1240 AM, 100.7 FM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Versa Skins. Just change your skin for the season you're in. I love Versa Skins. They're very well made, they're very warm, and they're very versatile. If you're going to be predator hunting, you just snap on and zip on the outer snow camo shell. If you're going to use it for firearm season, you just snap on and zip on your blaze orange shell. Or if you're going to be bow hunting, you just take everything off and just use the camouflage pattern that they come in. They're very versatile. Great Michigan-based product, and they come in sizes up to 6X. Check them out online at versaskins.com. That's versaskins.com. While you are online, head on over to woods-n-waternews.com, the website of Woods and Water News, Michigan's premier outdoor publication, in my opinion. Tom Campbell, one of the reasons for that. Tom, welcome back.
Hey, Mike, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Great. How are you?
All right. Hanging in there. It's that time of year that, we're kind of out of deer season, but we got a lot of rabbit hunting. Yeah, we got a great ice fishing. So it's a great time to be outside for sure.
Always, right, Tom? We've talked about this before. I don't care what month of the year, what season it is. Here in Michigan, we're blessed. There's something going on in the outdoors.
Yeah, absolutely, Mike. You're so right. Yeah, and we try to cover that obviously in our publication, and as well as you do on your broadcast. So it keeps us busy. That's for sure.
Well, and it's kept you guys busy for a lot of years, and the fact that you've been around for so many years says a lot about Woods and Water News.
Yeah, you're right, Mike. Yeah, I think during the show season we're in now, we're talking to people. People are still amazed that we're hanging in there with that, old-fashioned publication, a paper publication. What's that? But yeah, it's hanging in there real well, and we're awful excited and kind of proud of it too.
Well, and you should be proud. But I'm thinking about print publication. Yeah, newspapers. They're not what they used to be. But there's something about Woods and Water News and your topic and your form, and you and I have, again, discussed this as well, people love to have this in their hands because unlike a lot of other publications, when they're done with these, they don't throw them away, Tom. They put them somewhere, and you'll find them in cabins. You'll find them, all over the place. It's like they never go away.
You're so right. We hear those stories too. It's fantastic. Yes, and usually the gentleman's saying, "Oh, I've got them from since 1992," and the wife's sitting in the background shaking her head. He does. So it's fantastic. Yeah, we love that.
And the thing of it is, there is a digital edition. There is an online version, but and that's going to appeal to some people. It might even appeal to me.
Exactly
but
right.
It's nice to have the option.
What we're seeing too, Mike, is it's picking up greatly a combination because, like you said, people still love to have it. But what's really nice is that reference. It's a lot easier to go online and go back into the archives and find something than it is, to go back down the basement and get those crates out and try to find that issue. So, but it works either way. But we are seeing a nice resurgence in our online presence with the combination where people get the paper and have that reference ability to go back and look. So
how does that work? If I get a subscription, is the online automatically included, or is it two different deals?
We have a combination plan where we charge $35 just for all the administration fee or all just those extra fees in it. Normally our 1 year subscription is $29 and you get it in the mail. So for $6 more, you can get the online version, which is simple, email, password, and you're in and you have access to everything and you can see it as soon as it comes out in print, just as if it was printed. So
for extra $6, you get the whole deal?
Yeah, extra $6, you get the whole deal. Absolutely. That's right.
I know which way I'm going.
Yeah, there you go. Absolutely.
And what are we going to find in this latest edition, Tom?
Well, I tell you, the November, we're still finished up. We still got some big bucks out there that we're telling their stories, which is always fascinating. But we also have a great topic on midwinter panfish by Mike Netkowski. Panfishing kind of tapers off here. He's got some great tips for you on that one. Of course, as you were talking about versus skins and changing your camo, time to change over if you want to do some predator hunting. Tom Lounsbury, one of our longtime writers from the Thumb area, talks about, hunting coyotes in the Thumb of Michigan. So great tips there. And, of course, we always have regular columns that are always interesting on looking back. And Tom Hugger's Michigan Meanders is always fascinating what he comes up with. I'll just give you a tease in the February issue. It's, aren't you glad, but don't you wish? So I'll leave you with that. Try to figure that out. Yeah,
that's a good one, Tom. I got to give you credit for that. That's a good one. Tom Lounsbury. Tom Campbell. You were talking about Tom Lounsbury. I had him on the show last week as well. Tom Campbell of Woods-n-Waternews. The website woods-n-waternews.com. Keep up the good work, Tom.
Great. Thank you, Mike. You too.
All right. Appreciate that. Tom Campbell of Woods-n-Waternews. Pat loves it when I do that. He thinks I'm wrapping it up, and I throw another question back. He's like, hold on, I got to press the button. Sorry about that, Pat, but you recovered very well. Woods-n-waternews.com. We'll take a break for the top of the hour. When we come back, we're going to head north to White River, Ontario, Canada, an area I actually know quite well. I've been up there for years now. Bear hunting primarily, but also wolf hunting. I want to talk with Darrell Garden about how he guides wolf hunters. Then Sergeant Richard Cardenas of the DNR. Stay safe and legal on your snow machine. And this week's Ask Avery on smoking fish and wild game with Nick Grillo of Michigan Brand Meats.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by J Sporting Goods, the Yider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polarcraft Boats, the Forward Corporation, Primal Tree Stands, Security Credit Union, Garber Chevrolet, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Well, thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to hour number 2 of this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show, right here on the Outdoor Magazine radio network, heard on more than 30 radio stations across the great state of Michigan. Guess what? This is a radio show. Yes, you might be listening to it as a podcast, but first and foremost, it is a radio show. One of the, I got to be honest, one of the biggest statewide syndicated outdoor radio shows in the country, one of the longest running outdoor radio shows in the country, and all that means is that I'm an old guy, right? But I mentioned the fact it's a radio show, and I would encourage you to listen if you can on your local AM or FM station. I think that's the best way to do it. But if you can't, there is a podcast version of the show available. You hear so much about podcasting these days, and it's such a common term that I hear people say, "Oh, I listened to your podcast over the weekend." I say, "Oh, where'd you listen to it?" "Oh, and they give me a radio station. Well, if you listen to it on a radio station, it wasn't a podcast; it was a radio show. But that's maybe a little bit too much inside baseball. It kind of drives me crazy, but maybe for you it doesn't matter, and I get that. The fact that you hear my voice at all, it does mean a lot to me. I do certainly appreciate it. If you can listen on your local AM or FM station. If not, the podcast version is available. Where can you hear that? Anywhere. Literally anywhere you can hear podcasts. You can hear the podcast version of the Outdoor Magazine radio show, including my website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com, on my Facebook page, which is MikeAveryOutdoors.com, on Amazon Music, Audible, on Twitter, LinkedIn, iTunes, Google Play, yada, 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 Stitcher, Deezer, Odyssey, even YouTube. Yeah, I put the radio show up on YouTube. There's no video to it. I mean, it's just a static background, but people listen to it / watch it on YouTube as well. And I appreciate that. Also, speaking of podcasting, I produce monthly podcasts for Offshore Tackle, Angler Quest Boats, Primal Tree Stands, and Polar Craft Boats as well. In fact, when we're done here with the radio show, Pat and I are going to record this month's Offshore Tackle podcast. So keep an ear out for that. But again, regardless of how you're listening or when or where, the fact that you do hear my voice, I really do appreciate it. I mean, it has allowed me to do this for a long time. And I have no plans of retiring soon. I mean, I guess eventually I'll have to. Maybe not. But, I appreciate it. One of the advantages of being around for a while is I've had a chance to have some very cool and interesting and unique experiences. As right now I'm thinking about, my time up in White River, Ontario, Canada. I started going up there about a dozen years ago. I went up there for a bear hunt. At the time, I was hunting with Pete Jones of Superior Bear Outfitters. And I was a little hinky. I'd never been up there before. I had had some experiences in some parts of Canada where people weren't exactly friendly. I'd had some experiences where the bear hunting wasn't very good. But I took a chance and went up to White River, and I fell in love with the area, with the scenery, with the wildlife, and with the people. And I have been up there every year, except for a COVID timeout, every year since then. Usually bear hunting, these days with Ron St. Louis of Northern Wilderness Bear Outfitters. But a few years ago, I was up there on a wolf hunt, and I hunted with Pete again. And I got to tell you, it was one of the most intense experiences I've ever had. I mean, it was 40 below zero. My first hunt, I was out there with a crossbow. So, I mean, you're walking in knee-deep snow in the pre-dawn daylight, and it's 40 below zero, and you're walking back into a bait that wolves have been on. And it was really, really cool. I wish we could do that here in Michigan. Darrell Garden is one of the guys I know from White River. I see him every year. He works with Pete. He helps Pete out. With Ron out on his bear hunts. But he's running wolf hunts in White River. And that's what I wanted to talk to him about. Hey, Darryl, listen, I appreciate you taking time out of your day to join us here on the show. How are you?
Doing great, Mike. Yourself?
I'm doing real good. Listen, how's the weather right now in White River?
Well, the weather's not too bad. It's about 20 below Celsius.
How has your winter been overall?
The winter hasn't been too bad. We had a lot of cold snaps, minus 38, stuff like that. We got snow now.
A bunch of it?
It took a while.
You got a bunch of snow, Darryl?
Yes, we got about, I'm going to say almost 2 feet of snow now.
Well, one thing I learned is you guys are tough. To live there, you got to be tough.
Yeah, we're tough.
Tell me about your wolf hunting operation. How did you get involved in this?
Well, I started doing wolf baiting in like 06, 07. And then our mill shut down, and I was forced to go out into Alberta to work for 8 years. So that all got put on hold. But I just kept baiting all the way through. I just never ran a wolf hunt, but baited a lot over the years. Like we're talking 15 years now. And there's multiple areas that I do, and I just never shoot them myself. I'm just hoping people could come up here and do it. I shoot wolves myself if I'm moose hunting, if I got the opportunity. But there are numerous wolves in our area, like groups of anywhere between 4 to 12. So it's I'm looking out for the moose management aspect of it also, and try to wean a few of them out before we start losing the majority of our moose population.
Now, when I come up, I have to buy a license, and you can buy them right over the counter, even for an American. Do the local guys, do you have to have a license, or are they considered a nuisance or a shoot-on-sight type thing?
No, we still have to buy a tag. We're allowed 2 tags. There's some WMUs, like in the southern areas, where it's an open all year round. You don't need a tag. You just hunt them on your small game license. But up here in our area, you have to get a small game license and buy the wolf tag.
Now, you said you were keeping baits going even when you weren't hunting them. Was that strictly to encourage others to come in and try to thin them out a little bit?
Well, I was doing it more for the part of trying to keep them away from town. And, I know they're not like coyotes. They will be on their own, and coyotes are a little bit more aggressive than wolves when it comes down to having a dog on a chain or something like that.
This is interesting.
So baiting.
I didn't realize this, Darryl, and I'm sorry to talk over the top of you there. We had a little bit of a delay; it threw me off. But you were putting baits outside of town to keep the wolves out of town.
Yeah, and same with Peter and them. The baits are close to town, but they're out of town. So we got the coyotes that hang out in town. Like last night, I seen one in town. So we just don't need everyone getting scared of an animal that's a foot taller than the coyote running around town, and then they think, oh, it's just the coyote. We want to keep those big dogs out of town. We don't need anyone getting hurt. Like I got a bait just outside of town. There was 4 in it, a wolf pack of 4, and it's only like 1.5 kilometers out of town. So I'd like to keep a group of 4 away from the population of town. There's little kids running around. A wolf will grab an 80-pound kid and run with him or her.
I think about what you guys are dealing with there, and then I kind of transferred in my mind to the UP, and gosh, I think we need a wolf hunt here in Michigan to manage the population. But as much as anything, to follow up on what you said, Darryl, to kind of put a little bit of a fear of man, because that's one thing I did notice when I was up there wolf hunting with Pete, is if these critters, your wolves, if they see you, hear you, smell you, or think you're there, they're not coming in. They have a healthy fear of man, don't they, for the most part?
Well, I think it all depends on how they are raised. Like if they're raised in an area where they see trucks and construction and logging and all that stuff, and the guy throws a sandwich out on the ground, guess what? 2 weeks down the road, you pull up, he's going to come to you. And that's what it's true. It's a dog. Like but it's scary when you got to deal with that. Like I have a buddy up here, he runs equipment in the bush, and they're doing this new power line transmission. And he was pulling bridges and like taking out all the access roads and all that, and 5 wolves come right up to his machine.
Holy cow. Hang tight, Darryl. I got to take a break. Listen, I want to follow up on that, but I got to take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show. We're talking with Darrell Godin of White River, Ontario, Canada. Darryl is guiding wolf hunters there these days. In fact, my friend Ross Elliott's is trying to get up there and hunt with him. White River, beautiful place. If you have a chance to get up there and say hi to the folks. They're great people, including Darryl. More coming up after the break right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Caro on WKYO 1360 AM and WIDL 92.1 FM. You can hear us in Holland on WHTC, again, AM and FM, 1450 AM, 99.7 FM. And you can hear us in Newberry on WNBY 1450 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by MUCC's On the Ground program. OTG is a program to improve habitat for fish and wildlife across the state. For details, check out the Michigan United Conservation Club's website. It's MUCC.org, MUCC.org. And a reminder, if you want to save 25% on signing up to become an MUCC member, use the promo code Mike, all caps MIKE, and you can save that 25%. Right now, talking with Darrell Garden of White River, Ontario, Canada, about this topic of wolf hunting, because Darryl has been running some wolf hunts. He's been guiding some wolf hunts. Darryl, before the break, though, you were telling us about one of your buddies who was working out in the bush and had an interesting experience with the wolves. Tell us more about that, please.
Yeah, well, there's a few areas like south of us. You're familiar with Road 600, stuff like that, and where they were doing the power transmission lines, like the North Regan Road, stuff like that. You know, with all the big heavy equipment running around and making all kinds of racket. Two black wolves walked out onto the road where he was working, and then 3 more come right behind him. And they're not coming for the noise. They're coming for someone fed them. Someone did something there. You know, and behind the mill, my buddy, he's been sending me pictures. Look at this, look at this, look at this. There's wolves everywhere. There's wolves everywhere up here.
And you want to keep them out of town, yeah. So you want to keep them out of town. So you're running baits and you're running hunters as well. Are the hunters that you run, Darryl? Are they all pretty much Michigan guys that come up, or what?
I try to get the Michigan guys, but with all the restrictions through COVID and all that, and I was supposed to have one guy come up with. I thought he was going to be bringing a buddy, but his wife got COVID. The little guy is not doing good, so everything's on hold. I actually do have 2 Ontario guys, believe it or not, and they're coming up on the 20th of February.
Ah, well, good. You mentioned bait. I've hunted over bait. Is that the only way to hunt? Can you spot and stalk him? Can you call him like you call coyotes?
I don't know. I never tried it. I think they just like a bait site that has been established for years. You know, you just keep giving them food. Like there was 3 weeks where I never been out to get to feed them, and guess what? There's tracks all over the snow. They're digging in the same hole where I buried it. They're going to keep coming back to the bait site, just like bears. You bait them. The first bait you put out in the spring, guess what? He shows up.
Yeah.
You know, the wolves know where the food's going to be, so they're just going to keep coming back.
What do you use for wolf bait?
I use moose. The majority is roadkills. There's 2 sites that I have established for a few years now, and I probably gave them 2,500 pounds of moose scraps from the local butcher shops each. But the main diet right now is roadkills. I do still have some of that meat left. One of my buddies, he's a trapper, so I'm getting about 15 beaver off him. So what I'll do is I'll just hang them up in a tree just to get that scent out there.
Yeah.
But I got 2.5 cow moose that got hit on the highway. I got a calf moose in my yard. So I'm just waiting for some guys to show up so I could feed them and have a good hunt, hopefully.
I know when I was up there hunting, Pete and his dad Dave, they had a moose carcass. Again, the guy hit by a truck, semi out on the road. They dragged it back into the bush, and I was sitting over that carcass, and I had a small female, not even a big alpha male, a small female wolf come in, and she was eating on that, and I watched her grab one of the ribs that was about as big around as my wrist, and she just took it and she snapped it off. I mean, it's just amazing to me how strong these things are.
Yeah, they got to be the most powerful animal out there. Like, you hear stories of the coyote taking out a deer. Well, that's pretty much the same size aspect as a single wolf taking down a calf moose. Like, it's not going to be a problem for them. And a female or not, they're killing machines. And when it comes down to it, you get about 6 of them that are hungry. Nothing's safe out there. For example, Road 700, well-traveled road, dead cow in the middle of the road Monday morning. The wolves got it. Like on a plowed road.
Yeah.
So they ran it down. But I changed their dinner plans a little bit there. I went out because I got word that it was out there, so I grabbed it with my snow machine, and I got a bait site about a kilometer away from there, and I dragged it off the road, and it's on that one site right now. So that pack, there's at least 8 wolves in it.
Will coyotes and wolves hang around the same territory?
They do. I got pictures of a coyote with. He's at one of my wolf baits. The wolves must think he's cool or something like that. But from what I hear, they don't get along, and the wolves will kill him. There's videos proving it.
Yeah. And another thing I remember too is when I was hunting over a bait up there is that. The ravens, man, you want them. They're like the sentinels for wolves, right? If they come in if they're relaxed enough to come in, it's almost like a sign to the wolves that this is a good place to come.
Yeah, for sure. That's a dead giveaway. Like when the ravens are there, the wolves hear that, they're going to come. They're in the area. You keep baiting them every week, they're going to stick around. You'll get the stragglers that'll come in every day, and you'll get the packs that go out hunting. They'll kill a moose, leave it in the bush. They know where it is. When they get hungry, they'll go back to it. But if they got a meal every day at a wolf bait, they're going to go there.
Sure.
It's a given.
So how are your hunts set up? Are they set up for gun hunters primarily?
Yeah, I guess 65 yards is the minimum that I got set up. 110 is the most that I'd shoot right now. But Ross Elliott, he brought his crossbow up, and he gave it up. He went to gun because the one come out and he was about 70 yards.
Yeah, that's pushing.
He wasn't comfortable taking that shot.
Yeah.
Yep.
What are your? You got people in ground blinds or tree stands or what?
They're all ground blinds, box heated blinds.
Oh, that's nice. If somebody was listening to this show and they say, "Look, this is on my bucket list," because Darryl, I talk to guys all the time. They say, "Man, my bucket list, I want to shoot a wolf." Because here in Michigan, you can't, so they know they got to go somewhere, and White River's right there.
Yep.
Would you take hunters? Are you looking for people?
Oh yeah, definitely. The thing is with this year, like we're running out. The season ends March 31st, so we're running out of time. But next year, my plan is to have 10 baited sites going, and I want to start right after the moose season in one of the areas, November 15th, and go from there right till March 31st.
Ah. Well, I've always said, and I told Ron this too. There's such a market for this. I think if COVID would cooperate and you guys, do just a little bit of advertising and getting the word out, I think you can just bring a ton of people in for this because this is something people want to do.
Yeah, for sure. It's just like I say, the last 2 years with COVID, it just put a damper. Would you be able to make it across the border? You can't make plans because and guess what? It's not your restrictions. It's the Canadian ones where they just thought, no, you can't do this. No, you can't do that. So if you make it, you make it this year. I still have openings for this year.
Well, if somebody wants to give it a try, they can reach me, Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com. And if it's okay, Darryl, I'll give him your number and put him in touch with you.
Oh yeah, for sure. Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, I don't know. It's I was fascinated by it. I honestly, it's one of the most intense hunts I've ever been on. I've actually thought about coming back up. What about getting the animal back across the border, though? I mean, man, because you're bringing what used to be an endangered species back into the States. What's that process like?
Well, you'd have to go to M&R and get a CITES permit to get them back across, due to the fact that you guys have the issues over there with that. And I think it goes with a couple other animals too, if you wanted to bring one back. You can't just buy a pelt up here either and bring it back. You got to go through the whole process or you'll get charged on your end. But the M&R does have all the tools for getting everything back across the border properly. Yeah,
I found it actually surprisingly easy. I went to the local, what we would call DNR office. A game warden looked at it and filled out some paperwork. I got to the bridge. I just showed them the paperwork. They didn't even look at the animal again. I drove right across. It was really surprisingly easy.
Yeah. Yeah, if all the channels are followed properly there, everything should go smooth.
Well, let's hope that things start to go smooth again, and let's hope that Ron's springtime hunts go well. I'll be back up there in August again for another bear hunt, Darryl, and I look forward to seeing you then.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks a lot, Mike.
Yeah, listen, appreciate your time. That's Darrell Godin, a wolf guide in White River, Ontario, Canada. Again, a place I have fallen in love with, and it's not just because of the scenery or the fact that they have bears and wolves and moose, but honestly, the people there have just been wonderful, and everybody who's ever gone up, bear hunting with me to hunt with either Pete or now Ron has said the same thing. It's like you go up there and you hunt, and it's like you become part of the family. Really, very, very good people, great hunting. Oh, by the way, I posted my bear hunting video that I did with Ron last fall. That's now online. You can find it on my YouTube channel. I also referenced it on my Instagram account and my Facebook page. Check that out as well. And you'll get a little bit of a feel for what that area is like. And if you want to go on a wolf hunt with Darryl, shoot me an email, Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com, Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com. And I will put you guys in touch with each other. We'll take a break. When we come back, Sergeant Richard Cardenas from the Michigan DNR. Welcome back to Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the show in Houghton Lake on the Twister 92.1 WTWS. You can hear us in Muskegon on WKBZ 1090 AM. And jumping over to the other side of the state, you can hear us in Port Huron on WPHM 1380 AM. Oh, the DNR's or the NRA's calling me. They want money, as they always do. I want to turn our attention. I said DNR because my next guest here is with the DNR. His name is Sergeant Richard Cardenas. Sarge, welcome to the show. How are you?
Good. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing good. I told you, don't call me sir. I appreciate you doing that, but just call me Mike, and I'll call you Sarge if that's okay.
That works for me. Thank you.
All right. Hey, a little bit about you. What area of the states have you worked in? How long you been in the department?
So I've been working for DNR Law Enforcement Division now for approximately 8 years. I started on the east side of the state in Oakland County, transferred over here to Berry County, and I've been in Berry County now for, I think 6 years.
Good for you. Good part of the state. So the topic this time around, Sarge, is what? Snowmobiles. We got a lot of people out there on sleds this time of year. What are you thinking?
Yeah, snowmobiles are definitely picking up, especially with this winter front that's coming through right now over here on the west side in Berry County. I mean, it's looking like we've already got, at least 6-7 inches overnight, and I'd imagine sleds are going to be hitting the trails here pretty hard coming this weekend if we get as much snow as they're predicting.
You hear once in a while about, snowmobile crashes, and when you hear about them, they're usually bad. I mean, when people hit on sleds, it's high speed, sometimes alcohol involved, and it goes south in a hurry.
100%. As conservation officer, and especially during the winter season here, especially this year, we've had some of the best ice that I've had in my lifetime, and sleds are out and about and having a lot of fun. And, some of our big focuses while we're out patrolling is we're definitely looking for people who are wearing the proper safety equipment, having their sleds properly licensed. And when we're making our contacts with people, we're definitely looking for things like being under the influence of alcohol or drugs for sure. And typically when those bad accidents really happen, unfortunately, alcohol and drugs and being under the influence typically is applicable to the accident, and as we all know, this is not a good mix to be having on some of these sleds. I mean, these new sleds are pretty fast and impressive machines.
When you talk about safety equipment, are you talking helmet? Because there's nothing else mandated, is there?
No, the only thing that's really mandated for safety equipment is going to be, you're required to wear a helmet for sure, and the studies are out there that you can look up how beneficial helmets are. Plus, they help keep your face a little warmer on the sled. In addition, you have to have a working headlight, taillight, and brake light on your snowmobile. And then, there's other pieces of equipment that we recommend. It could be a float coat, the proper snowmobile gear to help keep you warm. And in some of this new gear, they build in protectors, pads and stuff like that to help in case you are involved in an accident.
Sarge, I know you're over on the west side of the state, and you talked about licensing. A guy sent me a question. In fact, his name is Bill Lutz, and you've seen this. Bill says, Mike, I live on Saginaw Bay. Why do I need a DNR ORV decal to ride my snow machine on the bay? The way I see it, we already pay for a registration. Now, I realize, again, you're not on Saginaw Bay, but how would you address this, Sarge?
So the way I would address that is to provide some clarity first and foremost is I think when he says the ORV trail sticker, he's actually talking about what we refer to as the snowmobile trail sticker. So yes, you are required when you operate your snowmobile off of your property to register your snowmobile with the Secretary of State. They will provide you with a registration sticker that is placed on the forward half of your snowmobile, in a visible location. Once you decide to, kind of leave your private property, start operating on the, road right-of-ways, the maintained portion of the right-of-ways, going out onto the ice and into our trail systems, you are required to purchase a trail sticker as well. Now, without going into a super long explanation, the short answer of the purpose of the trail sticker is to develop revenue, to maintain trails, to purchase equipment to maintain trails. That money goes towards organizations like these snowmobile clubs that advocate for snowmobilers throughout the state of Michigan. And it's just written in the law now that, or has been since I've been doing the job, that is a requirement as well, in addition to your Secretary of State registration. So
you don't have to be out riding something designated as a trail. It's just if you're off your property that qualifies.
Correct. We'll talk about lakes. Lakes are getting a lot of use right now just because of the ice on there. And, until now, really over here on the west side, there wasn't really enough good snow on our trail system for people to be riding these expensive sleds on. Waterways are owned by the state of Michigan, and that funding goes towards access to these public boat launches that people will haul their snowmobiles to, unload their sleds, and go ride around on the frozen surface of the lakes. And the frozen surface of the lakes is considered an extension to the trail system as well.
Ah, gotcha. All right, there's the explanation right there. All right, Sarge, listen, I appreciate your time. Thanks for joining me. There was something else I wanted to ask you, but I think I'm out of time. So I'm going to let you go, and maybe our paths will cross again.
Sounds good. Thank you for your time.
All right, Sergeant Richard Cardenas of the Michigan DNR, michigan.gov/DNR, michigan.gov/DNR. We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll wrap up the second hour of this week's show with the Ask Avery segment, although I feel like we almost did an Ask Avery segment, right? Thank you, Bill Lutz, for sending me that email. And it just happened to work out perfectly that Sarge could answer that. So there's the first part of this week's Ask Avery, but we'll do the formal Ask Avery after the break, talking about smoking fish and wild game. Well, I know a guy who knows that inside and out. His name is Nick Grillo of Michigan Brand, and we'll have him on to answer this week's Ask Avery segment. So it's actually an Ask Grillo segment. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show on 98.5 WUPS in Houghton Lake. You can hear us in Manistee on WMLQ 97.7 FM. And you can hear us in the Sioux on ESPN 1400 WKNW. The Ask Avery segment is brought to you each week by Security Credit Union. Security Credit Union loves to work with outdoorsmen and women, and they can help you with your next outdoor adventure. Check them out online at securitycu.org. That's securitycu.org. This week's question comes from Lou Van. And Lou sent me an email to Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com, Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com. He said, "Hey, Mike, how are you? I love your show." See, I didn't really need to include that in there. That's not part of the question. I just wanted to put it in there that Lou loves the show. I was curious about smoking my own meat and fish, and I was wondering how to get started. He said, "I would love to hear from someone who is good at this. Thank you very much." I have a little bit of experience with this, but I'm by no means an expert. But I know a guy. His name is Nick Grillo of Michigan Brand Meats. So actually, this week's Ask Avery segment should be retitled Ask Grillo as Nick joins me. Nick, welcome back. How you doing? Oh, he got knocked. He's there. Okay. Yeah, he just sent me a text. He said they dropped the call. Yep. So we'll get him back on the line here. Nick Grillo of Michigan Brand Meats. By the way, if you want to send me a question for the Ask Avery segment, it's Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com, Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com, and in the subject line, please put Ask Avery or the Ask Avery segment, and that way I'll know. If you send these to me, via the social media messaging platforms and stuff, it gets a little confusing. So just send me an email to Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com like Lou Van did. And again, Lou's question is, I'm curious about smoking my own meat and fish, and I was wondering how to get started. I'd love to hear from someone who is good at this. Well, Nick Grillo of Michigan Brand Meats is an expert, and he joins me now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Nick, buddy, welcome back. How you doing?
Great, Mike. How are you?
I'm wonderful. So listen, how would a guy, Lou in particular, how would somebody get started in smoking meat and fish?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know if you'd call me an expert, but we definitely at Michigan Brand, we sure know how to take care of smoked meat, so we got you there. But I actually own a Traeger at home that I play a lot with, so I got some expertise with that for sure. And the biggest thing is, obviously, you can find tons of recipes online for spices or anything. But the biggest thing is every single piece of meat, every single fish is going to be different. I mean, think of it this way. If you put a steak on a grill, is that steak going to come out the exact same every time you cook it? I mean, obviously it's not, huh? So you got to think of smoking jerky, or if you do anything big like brisket or anything, every time it's going to come out different. So the biggest thing is keeping an eye on your temperature, and that's without opening it up and exposing, cold temperatures or outside temperatures. You don't want to fluctuate that temperature a lot. So a Bluetooth or any kind of wireless thermometer is huge to keep an eye, because that temperature can get out of control sometimes, and especially if you're not watching it close, your meat or your fish could jack up real quick, and you could obviously burn it or anything.
Well, and this time of year, too, I would be tempted, okay, I'm going to lift the hood. And every time you do that, you let out the heat.
Exactly, yep. And I've done my fair share of that, too, but that's kind of the biggest key. And most of it, too, is learning your smoker. So even my Traeger at home, like I was mentioning, and even our big smokers that we cook 1,200 pounds of jerky in at one time at work, they have cold spots. So there might be certain sections of your smoker that get that little bit of seal issues where you're leaking in a little cold air, or where the heat just doesn't circulate as good. So a lot of it is trial and error. You're just going to have to play with it and get to know your own personal smoker. But that is the biggest thing, is just keeping an eye on that temperature, and obviously making sure it's cooked all the way. But I was talking mostly as far as not overcooking anything and letting something get out of control.
So when you smoke something, remind me, is there a brining process involved in this?
Yep, exactly. And a lot of it's obviously what you're doing, if you're doing jerky or if you are doing fish. But almost for us, everything sits at least overnight. We have a couple of flavors, and even like fish, for example, we always let it marinate overnight. So we mix it with the spices and the cure and everything, and we always let everything sit over the night, because the more time you have for that to soak into the meat, the better it's going to taste, obviously.
And so a lot of, I don't want to say trial and error, but it's like, you just don't be afraid to jump in and do it, and experiment a little bit and see what works and what doesn't with your particular setup.
Exactly. I know you remember I shot my mountain lion there last year, 2 years ago now. And obviously we have the smokers at work, but I played a lot with that at home. I made jerky out of my mountain lion. And that, again, it is a whole different animal, so it's not surprising, but that cooked a lot different than beef or than cooking a smoked fish on there. So the first batches I did do kind of small just to kind of learn it. But heck, that jerky came out awesome, and I did that on my little Traeger at home. Yeah.
Nick Grillo, appreciate you helping us out, MichiganBrand.net. So this week's Ask Avery segment is actually called the Ask Grillo segment. Thank you, Lou Van, for asking the question. Thank you, Nick Grillo, for answering the question. And thank you, Security Credit Union, for helping to make each week's Ask Avery segment possible. MichiganBrand.net, MichiganBrand.net, SecurityCU.org. We'll take a break for the top of the hour. When we come back, we'll talk a little ice fishing with Jake Romanak of Fishing 411.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay Sporting Goods, the Yider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polarcraft Boats, the Forward Corporation, Primal Tree Stands, Security Credit Union, Garber Chevrolet, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Indeed, this is the big guy, Mike Avery, and welcome to hour number 3 of this week's Outdoor Magazine show, right here on the Outdoor Magazine radio network, more than 30 stations across the great state of Michigan. The show also available as a podcast. Regardless of how you are listening, I do certainly appreciate it. There's so much content out there these days. I mean, we are bombarded by broadcast shows, by cable shows, by online shows, more than ever. And the fact that you have chosen to take part of your extremely busy week, your extremely valuable time, and spend a little bit of it with me, I appreciate it more than you'll ever know. My website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. My email address is mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. And just a reminder, if you want to reach out to me with an Ask Avery question or any comments, questions, concerns, whatever, feel free to reach out to me, mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. I have been blessed to work with some wonderful people over the years. I mean, I can't even begin to count them all up. It's just been a wonderful ride, a wonderful experience. And like I always say, unless God has other plans, there's no end to this in the near future for me, for sure. I just love this so much. And so many of the people that I've worked with over the years have felt the same passion. Maybe not for never retiring, but just a passion for the outdoors and a passion for what they're doing. And I have been so fortunate to work with the Romanek family for many, many years. Mark Romanek, I first met him, I can't even tell you what year it was, but he was a naturalist at the Greenpoint Nature Center in Saginaw, and I was a reporter at TV5. Our paths crossed back and forth for so many years. Eventually, early on, the Fishing 411 TV show was a joint venture between me and Mark. I quickly realized that I had no place in that, meaning that I was just getting in the way. So we shook hands and parted ways, and it was a wonderful move for me, and it was a wonderful move for the Romaneks, because I think, looking at it from the outside, that really helped clear the way for Mark's son Jake to get involved. And as I said earlier in the show, when you look at the Romanek family now, Mark Romanek and his son Jake, I think they are probably the most well-known fishing father and son team, certainly in Michigan today. And with that build-up, Jake Romanek has agreed to join us on the show this week, and I appreciate it. Hey, Jake, welcome back to the show. How are you?
I'm doing good, Mike. Thanks for having me on. That's I always love hearing that story, especially how this week we are actually airing our 200th Fishing 411 episode, 16 years on television, and it's been a crazy ride, and it all started with you, Mike.
200 shows.
Crazy to think about.
It is crazy. It is absolutely crazy. And when I look at those first shows and compare it to what you guys are doing today, I mean, you've come such a long way. You're doing such a wonderful job. You're using technology. You're using drones. You're using underwater video. What you're doing, Jake, is just phenomenal. And your dad, Mark, credits a lot of that to you. I'm sure he tells you that, but he's told me that as well.
Well, you said it at the beginning, Mike. There are so many different forms of media out there now, whether it's on-demand television or YouTube-type videos or national television. And so I've always felt like you'll get left behind very quickly if you don't keep up with the times. And so we have grown our national television, we've grown our on-demand television, and we've tried to grow just the quality of the show every year, just to stay with the times.
Well, and staying with the times these days is, for me, Jake, being an old guy, it's almost an overwhelming task because, yeah, I've got the radio show that I do and I love, but I'm also heavily involved in social media, and trying to stay ahead of that curve is like trying to get out of the way of an earthquake. It changes so fast that it's almost overwhelming to me. How do you deal with it?
You know, that's a good question. I don't think that there's a right answer to how to deal with it. I think we just try to stay, in touch with everything as everything moves around. For instance, right now it seems like the big thing is this on-demand television. Our television show, Fishing 411, airs on the Sportsman's Channel and the World Fishing Network. And that's great, and people are watching it there. But in my mind, I want as many people to see it. I don't care how they watch it. I just hope that they take time out of their busy schedule to watch it. And so there's a lot of these new on-demand sources out there. And what we're doing is just basically putting our shows out there on as many platforms as we can get our hands on, and then going back and looking at the numbers and seeing if people are watching it there. And it's basically just a guess, and by golly, hopefully people are watching it there and we can get it out to these different places. A new thing for us over the last year is we've added this newsletter, basically a weekly email blast newsletter that shows one of the episodes, a couple different tech tips, a blog that my dad wrote, and it sends directly to people. And they can subscribe to that right off fishing411.net. But that's another avenue to try to make it easier for people to see this information. We're all busy, and it's very easily to skip right over this information and not see it. So we're trying to make it as easy as possible for people to find.
Well, you may have just answered my next question, because I was going to say, does the old adage hold true that if you tell a good story, if you have good content, if you have good information, people will find you? Or in today's world, is there just so much out there that maybe they won't find you, and promotion of what you're doing and using the right channels is maybe more important than ever?
I think that's true, Mike. I mean, we work very hard to try to create as much quality content as possible. The whole point of Fishing 411 from day one is for information. I don't think people really want to sit there and watch me and my dad catch fish for 22 minutes on TV. It's all about the information that we're sharing. What I want in a perfect world is I want someone to be able to watch that episode, go to that fishery that we were at, duplicate what we did in the same times a year, and be successful. Because as fishermen, if you're not going out and catching fish, you're not going to stick with it very long. You're going to go on to golfing or do something else. So if you have success in the sport that you are desiring in, you're going to continue on with that.
I remember early on, I suggested to your dad, I said, why don't you just call the show Precision Trolling or Precision Angling? Because, that's what he was known for. And he told me, he said, I don't want to pigeonhole myself, but he said the boys, and you, Jake, one of the boys, suggested this Fishing 411 as an information, as a resource. And Jake, I think you nailed it 16 years ago.
I think that it was good that we separated it at that time as well. Precision Trolling is another company that our family owns. We're in partnership with Keith Cavias and Gary Parsons on that company. And it's been nice to be able to keep those two separate entities. And so that's worked out really well. I think a cool story, Mike, that we should talk about is, kind of reminiscing on these 200 episodes, is looking back to, I'm 26 years old. So we've been doing this for 16 years, right? Like when we started this, I was this little 10-year-old kid walking around thinking it was the coolest thing that there was cameras and all this stuff. And the one story that I don't know if you remember it, Mike, but I got to tell it, is I was 10 years old. This would have been the first year that the state of Michigan allowed for 10-year-olds to be able to bow hunt. And you had walked up to me and you handed me a bow. And at the time it was a Diamond Justice. You handed me this bow and you looked me dead in the eye and you said, if you shoot a deer on camera, you can have this bow. And I will never forget that to the day I die. I thought that was the coolest thing, this little 10-year-old holding onto this brand new bow. And I went out in the woods, and that was for your television show at the time, and we were able to shoot a deer, and I was able to be on TV there. But, I mean, as a 10-year-old kid, that's something that just sticks with me to this day, and that, kind of sparked my excitement for being on TV.
Oh, I appreciate you sharing that. I had forgotten, but the minute you started to tell the story, it all came back to me. And thanks for doing that, Jake. And your family, the Romanek family, my family, the Avery family, we are just two examples of families here in Michigan that are so passionate about the outdoors. Not everybody is blessed to be able to do what you do for a living or I do for a living, but we do all share, many of us, this common thread about this love for the outdoors and a family history for the outdoors. And you guys as Romaneks get to share that with the world, and I find that very exciting.
It's a pretty incredible opportunity that we've been given here, and I love every minute of it. People that go to work 9 to 5 and then go fishing on the weekends, I was gifted the opportunity to fish when I want to go fishing and promote what we want to promote and live the lifestyle that we want to live. You were talking about working till the day you die. I couldn't ever imagine retiring because I honestly don't feel like I go to work in the morning. This is just what we do. It's our lifestyle, and I couldn't see it any other way.
Hang tight, Jake. We got to take a break here on the Outdoor Magazine Show. We're talking with Jake Romanek of Fishing 411, the website fishing411.net, fishing411.net. I know you have seen the show. I know you have heard me talk to Jake's dad, Mark, many times here on the radio show. But if for some reason you haven't seen the show or haven't been to the website fishing411.net, I would strongly encourage you to do so. Jake was talking about the fact that they strive to produce good content, a lot of content. But I'm telling you, the way both these guys, Jake and Mark, have the ability to explain things in a way that immediately makes sense. And that's a gift. Not everybody can do that. But these guys, when they get information out, they do it in such a way where it catches your attention, it entertains you, and it informs you. Fishing411.net. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Sandusky on WMIC, AM and FM, 660 AM and 95.3 FM. And you can hear us in Tawas on WIOS, again, another AM-FM combo, 1480 AM and 106.9 FM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by Boning Archery. Michigan-based Boning has been a leader in the archery industry for 76 years. Roland Boning invented Ferrule-Tite to glue broadheads to, at the time, were wooden arrow shafts. These days, Boning continues to come up with new products, new innovations. A buddy of mine just put a high-tech, ultra high-tech manufacturing process in place at that plant. So a company that is 76 years old is not resting on their laurels. They're not resting on what they've done. They continue to innovate, come up with new products and new designs for bow hunters and target shooters well into the future. Check them out online at boning.com. That's BOHNING.com. While you are online, please head over to my website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com, and then jump over to fishing411.net. There you will find a wealth of information about all things fishing, open water fishing, and ice fishing as well. We're talking with Jake Romanak of Fishing 411 right now. And Jake, I know as much as you love open water, I think you might like ice fishing even more.
I think that's true, Mike. I'm definitely obsessed with the ice fishing thing.
Why is that? I'm just the opposite. I love open water. I absolutely love open water more than ice fishing, but I don't understand just the opposite. Help me out.
You know, I've been asked that question a lot, and I don't know if there's a good answer for it, Mike, because ice fishing, it takes a lot more work, and you catch a lot less fish. For me, it's the whole experience. It's the fact that I'm on a snowmobile driving across a big, vast, frozen body of water. This last weekend, I spent a few days up on Lake Charlevoix in northern Michigan, and there was about 4 or 5 inches of snow, flat ice, and we were ripping all the way across the whole lake, and I just can't explain that excitement. The idea that 2 months ago I was in a boat here, and now I'm driving a snowmobile and walking around drilling holes and catching fish. It's just an experience that I can't get enough of. And then, of course, it's a rod and hand style of fishing, so it's pretty hard to beat that excitement of feeling that tunk in the line and setting the hook on a fish.
That part I can certainly relate to. Jake, were you fishing on Lake Charlevoix? Were you fishing the same spots through the ice that you did open water in the fall?
Actually, Charlevoix is has a very weird thing going on right now. It's not weird. It's actually being stocked by the Indians and by the tribe. But what's happening is they're stocking a lot of ciscos in Lake Michigan. And what's happening is Lake Charlevoix is attached to Lake Michigan, and there's a really big hatch of alewives in the lake right now. And these ciscos have come from Lake Michigan into Lake Charlevoix, and it's an opportunity to catch a lot of these ciscos. Now, were they there in the fall? They very well might have been. I was targeting other species on Charlevoix at that time. But these fish basically are roaming around this 100-foot deep basin in the middle of the lake, chasing these alewives. And it's creating this ice fishery that's really never been seen before. It's very fresh. The last couple of years, this has been a thing. It allows for people to go out and catch 20, 30, 40 fish a day. And these fish are 2 to 4 pounds, and they fight very well.
Wow. And of course, part of the challenge of your job is finding these new and changing and evolving fisheries, or at least taking a fishery that's established and finding a different way to attack it, because you've got to come up with something new, right?
Absolutely. Looking for different opportunities. The one thing that we're very blessed with here in Michigan is the diversity that we have, right? So a lot of places you go to. I travel all across the country. I started my ice season out on Lake of the Woods in Minnesota and caught just a pile of walleyes and a pile of saugers. Just an incredible fishery out there. But when you look at a lot of these other places you go to, the species of fish that they have are walleyes, pike, perch, maybe crappies and bluegills, and then the list starts dwindling very fast. But here in Michigan, we have so many opportunities on stock lakes where you have ciscos, you have steelhead, you have brown trout, you have rainbow trout, and then, of course, you still have your walleyes and your pike and your bluegills and your crappies. And so we have so many other species of fish to target. It's incredible. You can go on the DNR stocking report in the state of Michigan and look at some of these inland lakes in northern Michigan, and you'll go blind before you have a chance to fish them all. It's incredible. If you had to pick, can you choose a favorite target species? Oh, yeah, it's walleye, of course. You know that walleye is near and dear to my heart. I love chasing them, whether it's in inland lakes or on big bodies of water. Like Saginaw Bay is fishing very well right now, and I just love chasing walleyes. But I think if you ask me, whatever fish I'm catching at the moment is probably my favorite fish to catch.
Yeah, and I think you've pretty much caught them all throughout your young career. And if you haven't, I have a feeling you'll be chasing them.
I've absolutely tried to catch them all.
Let's go back to ice fishing here again for a minute, though. We've got a really good ice fishing year across much of the state. Good ice even in the southern part of the state, which doesn't always happen. But isn't it also true, Jake, that this time of year the ice fishing action tends to slow down a little bit? Isn't first ice the best ice? How do we approach a fishery this time of year?
Well, I would agree and disagree with that, Mike. I think that, a lot of places you go in the ice fishing world, by the time you hit that month of February, they call it the February lull. And that comes down to oxygen in the water. These lakes have been frozen. We'll use Minnesota, for instance. They get ice by Thanksgiving. So they've had ice on these lakes for a very long time. The oxygen starts to deplete in these systems, and these fish start to get more lethargic. I don't feel in Michigan that is as big of a thing because we just simply don't get the amount of ice. This has been a great ice year. We're seeing ice on fisheries that some years just simply don't freeze. But for the most part, we're talking about a foot or less of ice. There's still places for oxygen or cracks in the ice and oxygen to get into the water. So there is a lot of good fishing to be had in the month of February, whether you're looking at big bodies of water like Saginaw Bay. A lot of winters, Saginaw Bay does not freeze until the month of February. In the month of January, we're sitting there waiting for it to freeze up so we can get out there. So there's a lot of really good opportunities to be had here in this next month.
It's interesting, though. You take a body of water like a Saginaw Bay, and, regardless of ice conditions, there you've got migration, and you've got spawning, and you've got rivers dumping into it. If you go to an inland lake, a lot of those factors are missing, aren't they, Jake? Or are they?
Well, for the most part, we'll look at, we can talk about some southern lakes in southern Michigan, but we look at northern Michigan, where I'm from here. A lot of the better walleye lakes are deeper bodies of water, and so these fish tend to just slide off to deeper water. You don't see these fish in the shallow water as much. But again, our inland fisheries are completely different. I target walleyes completely different in inland fisheries than I would in places like Saginaw Bay. But you're exactly right. Now, if you're talking about big inland lakes, something like Burt Lake or Mullet Lake in northern Michigan, these lakes have water flowing into them. They're deep water. They fish a little bit more like what a Great Lakes would type fish. But maybe if you're looking at like a Lake Cadillac or Mitchell here locally by me, definitely different, shallow bodies of water that really don't have any main river systems pouring into them.
So what are we going to see on this season of Fishing 411?
That's a good question. We actually shot a show to start the season off on Saginaw Bay, actually, right before it iced up. In fact, days before it iced up. It would have been late December. That's what we'll probably start. That's what we'll start the season with. We'll definitely do an ice fishing show here in the month of February, whether that's on Saginaw Bay or with all of this talk of Lake Erie freezing up, maybe it'll be a Lake Erie show, but it'll be somewhere locally to this area, which will be nice. And then from there, we have a lot of ideas of traveling to some different places. After shooting 200 episodes, you don't want to go back to the same place year after year, so we try to expand. One of the places on our list is Ashland, Wisconsin. They have a very good brown trout fishery there that's really unknown or unheard of at this point. And so we would really like to get up there first thing this spring and get on some of those big brown trout.
Did Erie freeze? I hadn't heard that.
It has. Now, there's a little bit of weather coming through the next couple of days, this warm-up that we're seeing right now. There's supposed to be rain and wind down there. So we'll see what the ice does. But as of right now, this last week, guys have been getting out and fishing. I have a DNR buddy that lives down there, told me that Catawba, the boat launch there, was full last Saturday. So there are definitely people getting out ice fishing.
You bring up an interesting point. After 200 episodes, it would seem like you fished everywhere there is to fish in this part of the country. I mean, to come up with new fisheries. What about saltwater? Jake, have you guys ever ventured into saltwater or any desire to go that direction?
You know, my dad has talked about doing more saltwater stuff. My uncle Keith Cavias actually a couple of years ago moved down to Florida for the winter time to fish saltwater fish, and he's just had a great time doing that. And we've been watching him. My dad's actually gone down and fished with him. My problem is I love to ice fish so much, so there's only so many things you can do. But maybe that would be an opportunity. The problem is what we know best is freshwater species of fish. And I feel like when I do a television show, I want to make sure that we portray as much information as possible. And I don't know if I would be able to do that on saltwater. It's a totally different fishery down there. And so I think there's still endless opportunities for television shows. There's still places that we haven't filmed yet. Fisheries change, bites change, techniques change. And so we're always staying on that and changing with the times and changing these different techniques.
Jake Romanak, I think you are doing exactly what you were born to do. You mentioned, obviously, your dad is Mark Romanak, a fishing legend. And you just let this out of the cat out of the bag. Your uncle is Keith Cavias. I mean, you come from a long line of hardcore, well-known fishing educators. You didn't have a chance.
I didn't, Mike. I mean, I was born into this game, and I know you don't get to choose that, but I'm very, very blessed that I was born into this game because it has been a fun road to ride. And, it's still a lot of work. We put in a lot of hours, and you know as well as anybody that, it looks like we just get to fish for fun and get to have a great time out on the water every day. But there is a lot of work associated with it. But at the end of the day, I wouldn't have it any other way.
No, there certainly is. I mean, for me personally, getting out of television was a wonderful, welcome thing. But I am so glad that you guys are out there doing it. And I would encourage people, Jake, not only to go to your website, fishing411.net, but check out the Offshore Tackle website as well, because by the time folks hear this radio show, there will be a new offshore podcast out there. Jake Romanak of Fishing 411, appreciate your time. We'll talk again.
Thanks, Mike.
Fishing411.net is the website, fishing411.net. The website, by the way, if you want to hear that offshore podcast, the latest offshore podcast featuring Jake Romanak, you can find that at offshoretackle.com. That's offshoretackle.com. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine Show. When we come back, I don't know, Jake got me reminiscing and thinking about some things that I hadn't consciously thought about for a while. So maybe we'll follow up on that, maybe go somewhere else. I don't know, but lots more coming up right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine Show in Escanaba on WCHT, AM and FM 600, AM 95.3 FM. You can hear us in Marquette, staying in the UP, in Marquette WDMJ 1320 AM. Let's go back down to the lower in Traverse City, WTCM 580 AM, and we'll head a little further south. Down to Saginaw, WSGW, 790 AM and 100.5 FM. In fact, I'm in the studios of WSGW right now. In here with Pat Johnston, saving my rear end as he often does here on these shows. Pat, I do appreciate it. He does a great job. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by Reader Landscaping. Reader can take care of your lawn and property because it's your nature and our nurture. Let Reader create an outdoor getaway in your backyard, as they have for me. Although right now I suspect as you look at your backyard, it's covered with snow and you're thinking, it's too early. It's too early. But it's not. Now is the time to get in touch with Reader to make your plans for your springtime and summertime projects. And if you got a little snow removal to do, the folks at Reader can help you out with that as well. Check them out online at readerlandscaping.com. That's readerlandscaping.com. I really enjoyed that conversation with Jake Romanak. Jake brought up a couple of things that I'd kind of forgotten about. I mean, I've known this guy since he was a kid, literally since he was a kid, a little kid. Worked with his dad, Mark, and his mom, Mary, for years. And I do take some pride. You're not supposed to be prideful. I get that, but I am proud of the fact that I was involved in some way in 3 different people starting their own television shows. Mark Romanak, Fishing 411, Tim Roller of Whitetail Journey, and another guy, Gus Congemi, an East Coast guy who's done a couple of shows now. And these were guys who were pro staffers of mine at one time. And all of them said, look, we want to go do our own thing. We you've kind of exposed us to this world of outdoor television. We love it, but now we feel compelled. We feel driven. We feel called to do it on our own. And I was sorry to see all of those guys go, but I understand that when you are compelled to do something, you have to do it. If life gives you an opportunity and you feel strongly enough about it that you are willing to take a chance, take a risk, if you don't do it, you will then spend the rest of your life regretting it and wondering. At least if you go out and do it and it doesn't work, it's not a failure because you tried it and you know it doesn't work. The only failure is if presented with an opportunity, you don't take advantage of it, then you will spend the rest of your life regretting it and wondering what could have been. But when I hear Jake talking about growing up in a fishing family, he was born to do this. He was destined to do this, and they do a great job. So what else is going on? I'm looking at my list here. Welcome to the month of February. The weather, of course, and then in the month of February, right, you never quite know what it's going to be. As we are recording the show right now, we're having a pretty good snowstorm, and I think across much of the state we're getting a pretty good snow. Ice conditions are good, even in the southern part of the state. Jake told me that Lake Erie had frozen over. I did not know about that. That doesn't happen very often. I did post my Ontario bear hunt online. I was telling you for the last couple of weeks I was real close to getting that done, and that was a lot of fun. Now that I no longer have to edit video on a weekly basis under a very demanding schedule, of producing shows every week, and I can do it more at my pace. I mean, after all, that was an August bear hunt. I'm just getting it online now, right? But I love to reconnect with that process and tell a story using video. And, I got drones and cell cameras, and it's so different than it was when I first started. And it's so exciting for a guy who, like me, who's basically a technology geek anyway, to pull in video from a drone, a cell video, my regular video camera, video shot here in the radio studio. You can check that out on my YouTube channel, Mike Avery Outdoors on YouTube. I also posted it on my Facebook page, and I referenced a link to it over on Instagram as well. What else? Our Trinity dinner is sold out. Our Trinity Monitor Wild Game Dinner is sold out. Thank you for that. I can't give you a link yet to the online auction, but it's coming. This is something we've never done before. Other groups have done it with a lot of success, but we haven't done it, so we're still kind of getting our feet wet. I would imagine I will have that link for you, by next week. As soon as I've got it, you'll have it. And one final thing, a note of congratulations to my buddy Bill LaShawn, Doc LaShawn, who retired after many years. He partially retired, right? Part of his job is still going on, but he's my dentist, but also a friend of mine and an avid outdoorsman. But he is no longer seeing patients, and a real nice retirement party for him last weekend at the office, and we were fortunate to be, my wife Denise and I, fortunate to be invited to that. So, Doc, Enjoy your retirement. And my offer to take you fishing out on Saginaw Bay stands. I'm serious about it because that boat you got is not going to slow enough to troll, buddy. I tell you that. So we'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show. When we come back, we'll wrap it all up with wild game chef extraordinaire Dave Miner. I don't know what he has in store for us this week, but you can bet that it is an excellent recipe. And one more reminder, my website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. You can always reach me via email, Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. Welcome back to Outdoor Magazine. My name is Mike Avery, and I do appreciate you being along with me. If you are a long-time listener, thank you. I appreciate that. If you are new to the show, I appreciate that as well, and hopefully we can turn you into a long-time listener. If you've been around with us for a while, though, you know that I wrap up each week's show with wild game chef extraordinaire Dave Miner, and guess what? It's time to do that once again. David, my friend, welcome back. How are you?
It's good to be back, and I'm doing fine. And yourself, Michael?
I'm doing real good. We had a kind of a fun show this week, Dave. As I was looking back on it, just some great talkers and some interesting topics, and I'm blessed to be able to do this.
I'm glad. I love your show, Not just because I'm on it, but I would listen to it all the time anyways,
And your favorite part of the show is that last segment.
No, I'm not that vain to listen to myself, specifically.
So what do you got for us this week, David?
Well, everybody I know that fishes on the ice has been really doing it great with the walleye.
Mm-hmm.
So I got a walleye in Philo recipe. It's we did it for the show. I don't know how many years ago.
Oh, I remember this. It's a fancy schmancy one.
But it's pretty easy. Remember how?
Yeah.
Anyway, so what we're going to do is you need about 6 ounces or so of boneless, skinless fillet per person, and you want a kind of more of a chunk instead of the long fillets because it's going to have to fit in the Philo dough. You need a 6-ounce can drained of the real nice fancy picked through crab meat that has no shell in it. 2 tablespoons of garlic butter, a small onion diced very fine, a little bit of parsley chopped up, a couple of tablespoons of green onion sliced thin. You want to probably use the green part because you're already going to have the onion part or the onion from the first part of the recipe. You can get about an 8-ounce package of either fresh or frozen raspberries, 8-ounce package of Philadelphia cream cheese, a couple ounces of raspberry schnapps, and if you're opposed to using alcohol, you can use raspberry jelly and just melt it down in a little bit of water. And 1 package of Philo dough should do 4 portions, very easy. And a couple of tablespoons of melted margarine or butter or olive oil, and a couple of 3 or 4 tablespoons of breadcrumbs and the juice of a half a lime. So once you gather all of this stuff up, you're going to take on a damp cloth or a paper towel, spread out, and you're going to lay the Philo dough, take it out of the package. Immediately, you're going to cover it back up, top and bottom, with a moist towel. So, because it dries out so very, very quickly. So what I like to do is you're going to make 4 piles of the Philo dough, and you're going to brush it lightly with the butter or oil, and then sprinkle breadcrumbs. That's going to keep it from sticking together, and it's going to help it rise and become very flaky. So as I say, you're going to have these 4 piles. So you're going to take, starting near the bottom, you're going to take a piece of fish, and then you're going to put the onions and the other stuff there we got. You can put some raspberry in it, the Philadelphia cream cheese. You're going to make layers. So you're going to start with fish, raspberry, raspberries, Philadelphia cream cheese, a little bit of onion, a little bit of green onion, and the crab meat. And so you're going to make a stack of that near the bottom so that you can fold this over and put another piece of fish on top. Doesn't matter if it's the head piece or the tail piece. So we're going to take and roll up the fish from the bottom and make one roll, and then fold the inside in, and then continue to roll it up. And you're going to put the seam side down on a baking sheet. You're going to paint it up with some more of this melted butter or margarine or oil in 375 degrees, uncovered, for, I don't know, maybe up to 15 minutes or so, until the phyllo dough is golden brown and really crispy. And while the packets of this are in the oven, you're going to take and melt down a stick of butter, the lime juice, as much or as little as you care for. I would put about a half a jar of chicken gravy in this, or if you wanted to boil the bones from the fish, make your own fish stock, thicken it up with some cornstarch. It'd be just as good. But you're going to need maybe a tablespoon of the chopped parsley, a couple ounces of raspberry schnapps, razzmatazz, or you can melt down the raspberry jelly. You don't want the one with seeds, and the rest of the raspberries. Bring that up to a boil, cook it a little while just to get the alcohol flavor out of it. And then when the fish is done, you're going to strain that hot sauce on your plates, individual plates, and then set that packet of fish on top. Man, when we did the send in a recipe request for this, that's when we really got a ton of requests.
Yeah, I said it's fancy. It looks fancy. I mean, it looks like you put a lot of time into it. It's one of my favorites. And Dave, always appreciate your time. I would send people to Oscar and Joey's. You're there Thursday through Sunday, right?
Correct.
Thursday through Sunday. In the evening. Where do we find you real quick?
Well, we're right on the corner of Birch Run Road, Dixie Highway, exit 136, just east of the interchange on the south side of the road, right there at the corner.
Perfect. Wild game chef extraordinaire Dave Miner, a big part of the Outdoor Magazine show, as are you. I appreciate you listening. Check out the website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. You can send me an email to Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. And if you are on social media, I would appreciate you following me there. And we can continue to celebrate this outdoor lifestyle, the history and tradition of the outdoors here on Outdoor Magazine.